Well, I don't know how you're feeling about your finances tonight after Black Friday last weekend, ahead of the festive season. You're probably feeling incredibly stretched. And I think as December starts, it's frankly it's Friday and I'm broke kind of vibe. You're not alone. Nedbank putting out a report today suggesting 32% of working people say they're feeling high or extreme financial stress. You're probably going to shake your head when I say this, but that's actually good news because it's better than last year. Lizzy Mogale is the Executive Head of Insights and Advisory at Nedbank. Lizzy, a good evening to you. So nearly a third of us are feeling extreme financial stress. It's a sign of the times, and yet strangely, it's a little better than last year.
Yes. Hi, Stephen, and good afternoon to the listeners. Definitely better than last year. And how do we know? It's because every year, for the past 2 years, we've been conducting a survey around financial health, really, assessing the ability of South Africans to manage their current financial obligations and the confidence they have in the financial health of the future. What was encouraging is last year, South Africans got a scoring of 53.1, and this year it was 54.8, which was a 1.7% increase, which is very, very encouraging, around how we start managing the finances better. And you'll ask yourself, okay, where are the areas that improved and where are the areas that kind of regressed? When we look at forward-looking, a lot of South Africans show that they're having confidence in meeting their long-term goals that increased by 5.6%. They now started to plan financially. I heard you talking about credit card spending over December. A lot of people are starting to be a bit more considerate around, planning to spend. A lot of people are starting to look at their credit scores to try and understand their credit scores and what needs to be done to be able to address that. And we also see the improvement in the appropriateness of insurance cover. Where there seems to be a bit of a challenge for South Africans is that most South Africans are starting to use credit for day-to-day expenditures. Spending in relation to income has increased slightly by 0.7%, paying of bills. People are now starting to delay their ability to pay bills. And Stephen, we think South Africans are starting to trade off, between paying bills and saving for emergencies. We're seeing, more South Africans are starting now to save for emergencies, which we think probably is the outcome of the impact of COVID, where people were caught off guard without any savings within their areas, and their ability to manage debt has also deteriorated a bit. So it's a story of two halves, where we're seeing some good improvements from South Africans, but there's still a challenge around spending and managing debt that is emerging.
It's astonishing that, the great story of finances for so many of us is that we don't always learn the lessons that we should learn from events. And one of the great failings for so many of us as human beings is you can watch sort of financial disasters happen and we don't learn from that until it happens to us. COVID happened to us. You're suggesting we really learned from it.
Yes, by the look of things, and it's interesting. South Africans have learned from COVID that you need to have emergency savings, but they haven't learned around you need to manage your spend. So they are trying to balance the amount of money that they have and start splitting it to say, rather than paying my debt on time, I'd rather put it to savings. So we still need to learn more around how we manage our spending in relation to the money that we have. What you're talking about. So we are approaching the festive season. Plan accordingly in terms of what do you need, what are you going to spend before you even spend. Maybe get the money saved for January to make sure that you are ready to meet the obligations for January, because it's worrying for us that a lot of South Africans are using credit to be able to to manage their finances. We've seen quite an increase in people borrowing from informal lenders. 12% of the base that we surveyed said they borrow from informal lenders, and that increases financial stress around the social capital that it takes a toll on. People are selling their valuables. 11% of them said the other way of coping on financial stress is selling their valuables. We've seen an increase in payday loans, and also an emergence of buy now, pay later, where about 44% of our base said they are using buy now, pay later, and about 51% of them actually regret those decisions that they've made. So there's still an important need to really plan and have that discipline as South Africans as we go into what we call the crazy season.
I mean, many schools now teach some sort of financial literacy. They talk about how to save for the future, things like that. Personal finance, there's a lot of more information about it than there was 20 or 30 years ago. It's a huge industry. Is there anything that we could do in a kind of, I suppose, a structural way, particularly to help people save for emergencies? Because that's when a family really has a disaster. Someone breaks a leg, they can't work for a little while, there isn't enough money to go to a private hospital. That entire family, can end up with children out of school because there's just no money, because the person who did the work, or the person who had the income, is suddenly no longer available. You need quite a lot of money to survive something like that. Could we make it, I suppose, easier in some way to help people save in that for something like that?
Yes, definitely, Stephen. For example, we encourage people to say we've made this financial health calculator available. People can go to the Nedbank website, go through the measure and measure it from themselves. Then we also offer, some of the coping mechanisms around, try and spend less than you earn. If you don't, earn enough to address your spends, we're also starting to see, people adjusting their spending habits. We're seeing a lot of South Africans looking for alternate sources of income. A lot of side hustles are emerging where people are trying to increase their income. So you have two options. You either increase your income or you reduce your expenditures, right? That's what we say is quite important. We also encourage South Africans to say, if you're unable to pay your debts, seek professional advice. South Africans are quite ashamed. We saw a high increase in people's embarrassment to seek out professional advice. There's some shame that's associated with it. And we're saying, let go of the shame. Go and get advice. Look for, consolidation of loans. A lot of banks now, are offering. So if you can't pay, reach out to your financial service provider and make arrangements to make sure that you're working around them. We also, cautioning South Africans to be careful of debt consolidators, because we've seen a rise of debt consolidation that actually weakens the credit records of South Africans. So I think those are some of the steps that as South Africans we can try and take to be able to address it. We also encourage families to say, start talking about finances as families, so that your children don't have high expectations where they understand your financial, status. Your extended family members. Our studies show that more people are experiencing a financial burden because they are reaching out to extended family members. Have a conversations with them about money and the money situations and how together as a family you start spending. We think those are some of the simple things that will help South Africans to really enhance their financial health status.
I mean, there's so much around this. I mean, you talk about an index of sort of feelings of financial shame, and people will often say South Africans want to impress people. There's this phrase that I remember reading years ago, and I often use it because it explains things so well, I think, that, South Africans spend money we don't have on buying things we don't need to impress people we don't like. I mean, it just, to me, I don't know if we're really different from people in other countries, though. I mean, do we feel financial shame differently? Is there a sort of consumerism maybe that's taken hold? I'm sure it's taken hold in other places too.
Yes. I mean, if you look at our score, right, a score of 54.8 for South African, benchmarks quite nicely with the US around the financial, health system. So that's the good thing about it. The challenge, I think, from South Africans' perspective is the spending piece. And I think it also comes back to how, as a society, we define success. Currently, the indicators of success that we have in our market is carrying a Louis Vuitton bag, buying takeaway, going to movies, traveling. So we still have a more of overemphasized definition of success. And if we start weighing that in and start, really understanding, say success is really managing your money better so that it manages your stress, because we've seen a close relationship between mental health and financial health. We've seen a strong relationship between job satisfaction and a good financial health, health score. If we start thinking of those aspects and the future benefits that they're going to have, it's going to be, it's going to help us as South Africans to get to progress quite fast. So on an overall score, we measure relatively well compared to other countries. It's just around the spending. We need to curb our spending and be responsible in our spending as South Africans.
Lizzy Mogale, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Executive Head for Insights and Advisory at Nedbank.